The massive space station hung in the darkness like a small moon. Inside its curved metal walls, beings from 12 different worlds worked together with one goal. They had been preparing for this day for 50 Earth years. Today, they would finally meet the humans. Ambassador Kira walked through the main corridor on her 6 long legs. Her blue skin glowed softly in the station lights. She had spent the last 10 years learning everything about human language. Every word, every sound, every meaning. Her people, the Veltari, were known across the galaxy as the best at understanding new languages. But humans were different from any species they had met before. She stopped at a large window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a human ship was coming toward them. The ship carried 5 humans who had no idea what was waiting for them. Kira touched the translation device on her neck. It had taken her people 5 years just to build this one machine. It could turn human thoughts into words that any alien could understand. Down in the crystal gardens, Commander Juno stood perfectly still. His body was made of living crystal that caught the light and threw rainbow colors on the walls. The Nexari did not move much, but their minds worked faster than any computer. Juno had spent 20 years creating mathematical formulas to talk with humans. Numbers were the same everywhere in the universe. 2 plus 2 always made 4, whether you were human or alien. But humans used numbers in strange ways. They had something called poetry, where they made numbers dance with words. They had music where they turned math into sounds that made them feel happy or sad. Juno did not understand these things, but he had tried to learn them anyway. In another part of the station, Queen Raya clicked her sharp teeth together. She was the size of a small car with 6 arms and black shell that gleamed like armor. The Threx lived in groups where everyone shared the same thoughts. When one Threx learned something, they all knew it instantly. This made them very good at solving hard problems. Queen Raya had studied human behavior for 30 years. Humans were strange because they all thought different things. They argued with each other. They disagreed about almost everything. The Threx found this very confusing. How could a species survive if they could not agree on anything? Yet somehow humans had built cities and spaceships and had even learned to travel between stars. Dr. Hana floated in her water tank, her tentacles moving slowly through the warm liquid. The Aquari had lived in the deep oceans of their world for millions of years. They were very patient and very wise. Hana had watched every human movie and television show they could find. She had read every human book that had been translated into galactic standard language. What she learned surprised her. Humans told stories about meeting aliens, but in their stories the aliens were usually trying to hurt them. The humans in these stories always had to fight to protect their world. This made Hana sad. The real aliens in the galaxy were peaceful. They wanted to help humanity join their big family of worlds. In the military section of the station, General Kor sharpened his claws on a metal block. The Ursari looked like giant bears but were much smarter and stronger. They had been the warriors of the galaxy for thousands of years, but now they kept peace instead of making war. Kor had studied human military history. Humans fought wars constantly. They seemed to enjoy conflict in ways that other species did not. But Kor also noticed something else. Humans fought hardest when they were protecting something they loved. Their families, their homes, their ideas about right and wrong. This made them dangerous, but it also made them loyal. Kor thought humans might make good allies if they were treated with respect. The station's main computer room buzzed with activity. Circuits and wires covered every wall, ceiling, and floor. The Digitary had uploaded their consciousness into machines long ago. They no longer had physical bodies, existing only as patterns of light and electricity. To them, gathering information was like breathing was to humans. The Digitary had recorded every radio signal, every television broadcast, every internet message that had ever left Earth. They had watched humanity grow from a species that barely knew fire to one that could split atoms and explore space. The process had been fascinating to watch, but also worrying. Humans changed very quickly. Other species took thousands of years to develop new ideas or technologies. Humans did it in decades or even years. They were unpredictable in ways that made planning difficult. The Digitary had created 847 different models of how humans might react to first contact. Each model gave a different result. Near the docking bay, Engineer Voss adjusted the atmosphere controls for the 100th time that day. The Mechani were half machine and half flesh, the result of their species choosing to improve themselves with technology. They were excellent at building things and fixing problems. Boss had spent 15 years designing the perfect environment for humans. The air had to have the right amount of oxygen. The temperature had to be warm, but not too warm. The gravity had to match what humans were used to on Earth. Even the lights had to be the right color, because human eyes were sensitive to certain types of brightness. Everything had to be perfect. The Galactic Council had decided that humanity's first impression of alien civilization needed to show them how advanced and peaceful the galaxy had become. They wanted humans to feel welcome and safe, not afraid or threatened. In the central meeting chamber, all the preparations came together. 12 different species had worked together to create the perfect welcome for humanity. They had translation devices that could turn any thought into understandable words. They had gifts chosen to show friendship and good intentions. They had documents that would make Earth an official junior member of the Galactic Council. The plan was simple and had been tested many times with other new species. First, they would establish basic communication using math and pictures. Then they would show humans some of their advanced technology to prove they meant no harm. After that, they would explain how the galaxy worked and offer humanity a place in their civilization. It had worked perfectly with 847 other species over the last million years. Each new species had been grateful to join the galactic community. They accepted the wisdom of older civilizations and learned their proper place in the grand order of things. The aliens were confident this meeting would go exactly as planned. They had studied humanity more carefully than any species before. They understood human language, human culture, human psychology, and human history. They knew how humans would react to every situation, but there was one thing they had not considered. In all their years of watching and studying and planning, they had forgotten to ask one simple question. What if the humans had their own ideas about how first contact should work? The human spaceship New Sol dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light. Captain Day gripped his command chair as the ship shook from the transition. Around him, his small crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. They had traveled for 6 months to reach this meeting point at the edge of their solar system. Day looked at the main screen showing empty space filled with distant stars. According to their instruments, they had arrived at the exact coordinates sent by the alien signal, but he saw nothing out there except darkness. "Are you sure we are in the right place?" asked Minho, the ship's diplomat. He was a thin man with nervous hands that moved constantly when he talked. Earth's government had chosen him to speak for all humanity in this historic meeting. The weight of that responsibility showed in his worried face. Dr. Hana checked her science instruments for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. She was the team's expert on alien life, though she had never actually seen any aliens before. All her knowledge came from books and theories and computer models. "The coordinates match exactly," she said. "They told us to come here at this time." Engineer Yuna looked up from her control panel. She was the youngest member of the crew, but also the most practical. While others worried about what might happen, she focused on keeping their ship running smoothly. "Maybe they are running late," she suggested. "Even aliens might have traffic problems." Communications Officer Borum sat quietly at his station, listening to radio signals from across the galaxy. He had been the first human to receive the alien message 6 months ago. The memory of that moment still gave him chills. "I am picking up some strange readings," he said. "Something big is out there, but it is not showing up on our normal sensors." Captain Day had been chosen to lead this mission because he was calm under pressure and good at making quick decisions. He had served in Earth's Space Navy for 20 years, but this was unlike any mission he had ever faced. Meeting aliens was something humans had dreamed about for centuries. Now it was actually happening. "All stop," Day ordered. "Hold position and wait." The crew did not have to wait long. Space in front of them began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmer grew larger and brighter until suddenly a massive structure appeared, where empty space had been moments before. The alien space station was enormous. It was easily 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. The structure looked like someone had taken buildings from 12 different worlds and somehow made them fit together into one impossible shape. Parts of it glowed with soft lights, while other sections were made of crystal that caught starlight and threw it back in rainbow colors. "My God," whispered Dr. Hana. "It is beautiful." The station had clearly been hidden by some kind of advanced technology that bent light around it. The fact that the aliens could make something so large completely invisible showed how far beyond human science they had progressed. Captain Day felt a mixture of awe and worry. The station was so advanced that it made their own ship look like a toy boat next to an aircraft carrier. If these aliens wanted to hurt humanity, there would be nothing Earth could do to stop them. But the aliens had asked for a peaceful meeting. They had sent mathematical formulas and star charts to prove they were intelligent. They had even included pictures showing different alien species working together in harmony. Everything suggested they wanted to be friends. A new voice came through their communication system, speaking perfect English with only a slight accent. Human vessel New Soul, welcome to Galactic Council Station Harmony. I am Ambassador Kira of the Veltari. We have been waiting a long time to meet your species. Diplomat Minho cleared his throat and activated the reply system. Earth's government had spent months writing his first response to the aliens. Every word had been chosen carefully to show that humans were peaceful and intelligent. This is the Earthship New Soul. We are honored to meet you, Ambassador Kira. Humanity thanks you for this opportunity to join the galactic community. Your gratitude brings joy to our hearts, Ambassador Kira replied. Please follow the guide lights to our docking bay. We have prepared a suitable environment for your biological needs. Small lights began blinking along the side of the massive station, creating a path for the New Soul to follow. Engineer Yuna took control of the ship and guided them slowly toward an opening in the station's side. The opening was just the right size for their ship, as if it had been built specifically for them. As they flew closer, the crew could see more details of the alien construction. The metal was smoother than anything humans could make. The joints between different sections were so perfect, they looked like the entire station had been carved from a single piece of material. Windows showed glimpses of strange rooms filled with alien technology. Look at that, said Dr. Hana, pointing at a section where crystal trees grew inside what appeared to be a garden. They have created ecosystems from different worlds all in one place. The docking bay was large enough to hold dozens of ships like theirs. Mechanical arms reached out to guide the New Soul into a perfect landing. The moment their ship touched down, the bay doors closed and atmosphere began flowing in around them. Captain Day watched his instruments as the alien air mixed with their ship's atmosphere. Everything looked safe. The oxygen levels were correct for humans. The temperature was comfortable. Even the air pressure matched what they were used to on Earth. They have done their homework, said Engineer Yuna with approval. They know exactly what we need to survive. Ambassador Kira's voice came through the communications again. Please rest and prepare yourselves. The formal welcome ceremony will begin in 2 hours. Representatives from all 12 council species are eager to meet humanity. As the crew prepared to leave their ship and step onto the alien station, Captain Day felt a strange sensation. Everything was going exactly as the aliens had planned. They seemed to know more about humans than humans knew about them. They had answers for every question and solutions for every problem. It should have been reassuring, but somehow it made him uncomfortable. He could not shake the feeling that he was walking into a play where everyone else already knew their lines. The council chamber was the most amazing room any human had ever seen. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into shadows, supported by pillars that looked like they were made from compressed starlight. Each section of the room was designed for a different alien species, with different gravity levels, atmospheric conditions, and environmental needs all somehow existing in the same space. Captain Day led his crew through the main entrance, their footsteps echoing on floors that seemed to be made from polished diamond. Each human wore their finest dress uniform, carefully cleaned and pressed for this historic occasion. Dr. Hana carried a sealed case containing gifts from Earth, artwork, music, literature, and scientific samples that represented the best of human civilization. 12 different alien species waited for them, arranged in a perfect circle around a central platform. Each alien was more incredible than anything humans had imagined in their wildest science fiction stories. Ambassador Kira of the Veltari stood gracefully on her 6 legs, her blue skin shifting through different shades as emotions played across her face. Her large eyes seemed to hold ancient wisdom, and when she spoke, her voice carried the musical quality of someone who had mastered dozens of languages. Commander Juno of the Nexari was a living sculpture of crystal and light. His body caught the chamber's illumination and scattered it in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When he moved, which was rarely, It was with the precision of a master craftsman adjusting a perfect mechanism. Queen Raya of the Threx dominated her section of the chamber, her armored shell gleaming black and her multiple arms moving in complex patterns that seemed to have meaning. Behind her, dozens of smaller Threx workers moved in perfect coordination, their actions synchronized as if controlled by a single mind. Dr. Hana of the Aquari floated in her transparent water tank, her tentacles creating graceful spirals in the liquid. Her tank was positioned so she could see everyone in the chamber, and her large eyes reflected intelligence and curiosity about the newcomers. Each species had clearly prepared for this moment. Their positions in the chamber were carefully chosen to show their best aspects to the humans. The lighting was arranged to make everyone look impressive but not threatening. Even the air carried subtle scents that were pleasant to human senses. "Welcome, humans of Earth," Ambassador Kira began, her words translated instantly by devices that made her alien language sound like perfect English. "Today marks a historic moment for our galaxy. Your species joins a community that has existed in peace and cooperation for over 1 million years." She gestured toward the other aliens in the chamber. "Each species here represents thousands of years of wisdom and advancement. The Nexari have mastered mathematics and logic beyond your current understanding. The Threx have solved the problems of hunger and want through perfect cooperation. The Aquari have achieved harmony between technology and nature." Commander Juno's crystal body flashed with calculated light patterns as he spoke. "Your species shows great promise, humans. We have observed your rapid technological development and your capacity for learning. With proper guidance, you can avoid the mistakes that young civilizations often make." Diplomat Minho stepped forward, holding the formal response that Earth's government had prepared. His voice was steady despite the nervousness that showed in his hands. "On behalf of all humanity, we thank you for this welcome. Earth is honored to join your galactic community. We bring greetings and friendship from our world." He began reading from the prepared speech, carefully crafted by Earth's best diplomats and scientists. The words spoke of humanity's desire for peace, their eagerness to learn from more advanced civilizations, and their gratitude for being accepted into galactic society. Dr. Hana listened while studying the aliens around them. Each species was clearly very old and very advanced. Their technology was so far beyond human capabilities that it seemed like magic. Their societies appeared stable and peaceful, having solved problems that humans still struggled with. Queen Raya clicked her mandibles and what the translation system indicated was approval. "Your species shows proper respect for your elders in the galaxy. This is wisdom that will serve you well." The formal presentations continued as each alien species offered their prepared welcomes. They spoke of shared knowledge, mutual cooperation, and the benefits of joining their established order. Everything was perfectly planned and beautifully executed. Engineer Yuna found herself admiring the chamber's construction while listening to the speeches. The engineering required to create a space where 12 different species could exist comfortably was incredible. Every detail had been thought out and perfected over centuries of experience. But as the ceremony continued, Captain Dave found his mind wandering. These aliens had clearly done this many times before. They had a system, a process, a way of doing things that had worked for millions of years. New species were discovered, invited, welcomed, and integrated into their existing structure. Ambassador Kira presented a crystal tablet containing the formal offer of membership in the Galactic Council. "Humanity will be granted junior status initially," she explained. "This allows your species to participate in council decisions while learning our ways. Over time, as you demonstrate readiness, you will be granted full membership privileges." The tablet outlined a detailed plan for humanity's integration into galactic society. Human scientists would study alien technology under careful supervision. Human diplomats would observe council meetings for several decades before being allowed to vote. Human colonies would be established only in designated areas, using approved methods and technologies. Dr. Hana read through the conditions carefully. Everything seemed generous and well thought out. The aliens were offering to share knowledge that would advance humanity by thousands of years. They were providing protection from cosmic dangers that Earth could not even detect yet. They were opening doors to a universe full of wonders beyond human imagination. "Your species will benefit greatly from this arrangement," Commander Juno said, his crystal form pulsing with mathematical certainty. "We have calculated the optimal path for your development. Following our guidance will ensure your civilization's survival and prosperity. Diplomat Minho prepared to give humanity's formal acceptance of the offer. The words were already written, approved by every major government on Earth. This was the moment that would change human history forever. But before he could speak, Captain Day looked around the chamber one more time. These beings had spent 50 years studying humanity without ever announcing themselves. They had watched human wars, human struggles, human achievements from a distance, making plans and decisions about humanity's future. All their preparation, all their careful planning, all their wisdom and experience, it was impressive. But something about the situation felt wrong to him. Though he could not quite put his finger on what it was, the chamber fell silent as everyone waited for humanity's response to the generous offer of junior membership in galactic civilization. Diplomat Minho cleared his throat and began the response that Earth's leaders had spent months preparing. His voice carried the weight of speaking for all 8 billion humans back home, and he felt that responsibility in every word he spoke. Honored members of the Galactic Council, he began, reading from the prepared text. Humanity accepts your generous offer with deep gratitude. We understand that junior membership is appropriate for a young species like ourselves. We are eager to learn from your wisdom and experience. The aliens around the chamber showed signs of satisfaction through their various forms of expression. Ambassador Kira's blue skin shifted to warmer tones. Commander Juno's crystal body pulsed with steady, pleased rhythms. Queen Raya's clicking sounds indicated approval according to the translation system. Minho continued with the formal acceptance speech. Earth agrees to the integration timeline you have proposed. We will study your technologies under proper supervision. Our diplomats will observe your council meetings to learn appropriate protocols. We accept the designated areas for human colonization and will follow all approved methods. Dr. Hana felt a mixture of excitement and relief. The aliens were offering humanity more than they had ever dared hope for. Access to technologies that could cure diseases, end poverty, and allow humans to spread across the galaxy. All they had to do was follow the path that 847 other species had successfully taken before them. Engineer Yuna was already thinking about the engineering marvels she might learn. Faster than light travel, gravity control, energy sources that could power entire planets. All of this could be humanity's if they proved themselves worthy students. The formal ceremony was proceeding exactly as the aliens had planned it. Their behavioral models had predicted that humans would respond with appropriate gratitude and humility when presented with such generous terms. Everything was going according to their carefully crafted script. But as Minho neared the end of his prepared speech, Captain Day felt that uncomfortable feeling growing stronger. He looked around the chamber at these advanced beings who had spent decades planning humanity's future. They had made decisions about human development, human expansion, human participation in galactic affairs, all without ever asking humans what they wanted. The more he thought about it, the more something bothered him. These aliens had watched human history for 50 years. They had seen humans fight wars, build civilizations, explore space, create art, and reach for the stars. They had observed human nature in all its complexity. Yet their offer treated humanity like children who needed to be guided and protected and slowly introduced to the adult world of galactic civilization. Junior membership, supervised learning, designated areas, approved methods. When Minho finished the formal acceptance speech, the chamber filled with pleased sounds from the various alien species. Ambassador Kira stepped forward to present the crystal tablet that would make the agreement official. This is a historic moment, she said, her musical voice carrying centuries of diplomatic experience. Humanity joins the galactic community as our 848th member species. Your integration will proceed smoothly, as it has for all species before you. But instead of stepping forward to accept the tablet, Captain Day found himself moving toward the center of the chamber. His crew looked at him with surprise. This was not part of the plan they had rehearsed during their long journey to the meeting point. "Captain," whispered Dr. Hana, "what are you doing?" Day himself was not entirely sure what he was doing. But as he stood in that magnificent chamber, surrounded by beings of incredible wisdom and power, a simple question formed in his mind. It was the kind of question that humans had been asking since they first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. The aliens waited patiently for him to speak, assuming he wanted to add some formal words to the acceptance ceremony. Their translation devices were ready to convert his words into concepts that all species could understand. Captain Day looked around the chamber one more time. At the perfect arrangements that had taken 50 years to plan, at the generous offer that 847 species had gratefully accepted, at the wisdom and authority of beings who had mastered the galaxy for millions of years. And then he asked the question that no amount of preparation had prepared them for. Why? The single word hung in the air like a stone dropped into perfectly still water. The translation systems worked flawlessly, conveying not just the word but the deeper meaning behind it to every species in the chamber. But none of them had an answer ready. Ambassador. Kira's musical voice faltered for the first time in centuries of diplomatic service. Her blue skin shifted through confused color patterns as her mind tried to process the question. I beg your pardon? Why junior membership? Captain Day asked, his voice growing stronger as he gave voice to thoughts that had been building since they entered the chamber. Why do we need to be supervised like children? Why do you get to decide how fast humanity develops or where we can build our colonies? The chamber fell into a silence deeper than the space between stars. 12 advanced civilizations found themselves confronting a perspective they had never encountered in a million years of galactic history. Commander Juno's crystal form flickered with confused calculations. His mathematical mind, trained to solve complex problems through pure logic, could not find a computational framework for addressing this kind of challenge to established beneficial arrangements. Queen Raya's multiple arms stopped their coordinated movements for the first time anyone could remember. The Threk's collective consciousness, which had always operated on the principle that those with greater knowledge made decisions for those with less, had no response pattern for questioning the wisdom of obvious authority. Dr. Hana watched in fascination as the most advanced beings in the galaxy struggled with a concept that every human child learned before they could walk. The simple act of asking why when told they could not do something. Captain Day continued, his words carrying the weight of every human who had ever looked at the way things were and wondered why they could not be different. You studied us for 50 years. You know, we explore, we question, we push boundaries. Did you really think we would just accept being treated as junior partners in our own future? The silence in the chamber grew heavier as the implications of his words sank in. These beings had mastered technologies beyond human comprehension, had built a civilization that spanned the galaxy, had achieved peace and cooperation among dozens of different species, but they had never learned to ask the most human of all questions. Why? The word why spread through the chamber's translation systems like a virus attacking a computer network. Every alien species heard it in their own language, felt it in their own way of thinking, and struggled to understand what it truly meant. Ambassador Kira was the first to try to respond. Her people, the Veltari, had mastered languages across the galaxy. They understood the meaning of every word in every tongue. But this simple three-letter word challenged everything they believed about how civilizations should work. The system exists because it works, she said, her musical voice uncertain for the first time in 300 years of diplomatic service. Junior membership prevents cultural shock. Gradual integration maintains stability. We have successfully welcomed 847 species using these methods. Captain. Day looked at her with the same expression humans had worn since they first discovered fire, and wondered what would happen if they made it bigger. But who decided that was the right way? And when did anyone ask us if that was what we wanted? The question hit the chamber like a shockwave. Dr. Hana watched as beings who had lived for thousands of years suddenly looked confused and uncertain. These aliens had created a perfect system for bringing new species into galactic civilization, but they had never questioned whether the system itself was right. Commander Juno's crystal body flickered through rapid calculation cycles as his mathematical mind tried to process this new concept. The Nexari had solved every problem in the universe through logic and computation, but logic required starting assumptions, and no one had ever questioned the assumptions behind their integration system. The mathematics are sound, he said, his crystalline voice carrying harmonics of confusion. Species that follow our integration protocols show 97.3% success rates in achieving stable galactic citizenship. The system is mathematically optimal. Engineer Yuna stepped forward, her practical mind cutting through the complex philosophical discussion. Optimal for what? She asked. And who gets to define what success looks like? The simple question from the young human engineer sent more ripples through the chamber. Queen Raya's collective consciousness, which had operated for millennia on the principle that the group always knew better than the individual, found itself facing an idea it could not process. Success is obvious, Queen Raya clicked, her mandibles moving in patterns that the translation system labeled as defensive. Peace, stability, cooperation, advancement, these are good things that all species desire. Dr. Hana found her scientific curiosity taking over despite the tension in the room. But what if a species defines success differently? What if they value independence over stability? What if they want to make their own mistakes and learn from them? The Aquari representative, Dr. Hana's alien namesake, had been silent until now. Her tentacles moved slowly through her water tank as she considered the human questions. The Aquari were known for their patience and deep thinking, but even they had never encountered this kind of challenge to accepted wisdom. "Your questions are disturbing," she said finally, her translated voice carrying undertones of genuine confusion. "For millions of years, newly discovered species have been grateful for our guidance. They have accepted that older civilizations know better paths to development. But did you ever ask them?" Captain Day pressed. "Or did you just assume they would be grateful?" The chamber fell into another long silence. 12 species that had mastered space travel, conquered disease and hunger, and achieved virtual immortality found themselves unable to answer questions that human children asked every day. Diplomat Minho watched in amazement as his captain dismantled a million years of galactic tradition with nothing but simple questions. The careful integration protocols that had seemed so generous now looked like something else entirely. A system where the old and powerful decided what was best for the young and weak. "This is how civilization works," Ambassador Kira said, but her words lacked the certainty they had carried before. "Knowledge flows from the experienced to the inexperienced. Order is maintained through proper hierarchy. Change happens slowly and carefully." "Why?" Captain Day asked again. The word hung in the air like a challenge to everything the aliens believed about how the universe should work. It was not just a question about their integration system. It was a question about the fundamental nature of progress, authority, and the right of any being to determine another's future. Engineer Yuna looked around at the incredible technology surrounding them. "You have ships that can cross the galaxy in days. You have computers that can predict the future. You have weapons that could destroy solar systems. But in all that time, did no one ever ask if there might be a better way to do things?" The question struck at the heart of galactic civilization. These species had achieved technological marvels beyond human imagination, but they had done it by following the same patterns for millions of years. The idea that there might be different ways, better ways, ways that had not been tried before, this was completely foreign to them. Commander Juno's crystal form pulsed with new calculation, patterns as he tried to process the concept of questioning established optimal solutions. Queen Raya's collective consciousness buzzed with individual thoughts that had never been allowed to form before. Dr. Hana's tentacles moved in agitated spirals as ancient assumptions crumbled under the weight of simple human curiosity. "Your species is dangerous," said General Kaur, the Ursari military leader speaking for the first time. His voice carried the authority of someone who had maintained galactic peace for thousands of years. "You ask questions that undermine stability. You challenge systems that work perfectly well." Captain Day looked at the alien general without fear. "Maybe that is exactly what the galaxy needs." The words hit the chamber like a thunderbolt. For the first time in galactic history, a newly discovered species was not just refusing to accept their assigned place in the cosmic order. They were suggesting that the cosmic order itself might be wrong. Dr. Hana realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. These aliens had built a perfect system for managing galactic civilization. But perfection, she now understood, was also a trap. When something worked perfectly, no one questioned whether it could work better. The humans had brought something new to the galaxy, not advanced technology or superior weapons or great wisdom. They had brought the simple, terrifying, revolutionary idea that any system, no matter how old or successful, could be questioned. And once that idea was loose in the galaxy, there would be no putting it back. The great chamber that had hosted a million years of peaceful integration ceremonies now felt like the center of an earthquake that was shaking the foundations of galactic civilization. 12 species that had never questioned their perfect system found themselves staring into an abyss of possibilities they had never imagined. Ambassador Kira was the first to break the heavy silence. Her blue skin had shifted through every color in her emotional spectrum, finally settling on a pale shade that her people associated with profound uncertainty. "But this is how we have always done things," she said, her musical voice barely above a whisper. "Every species that has joined the Council has followed this path. They have all been grateful for our guidance. They have all prospered under our system." Captain Day looked at her with something that might have been sympathy. "Have you ever asked them if they wanted to try a different path? Or did they just accept what you offered because they did not know there were other options?" The question hung in the air, like smoke from a fire that was spreading beyond anyone's ability to control it. Dr. Hana watched as Ambassador Kira's ancient certainty crumbled under the weight of a possibility she had never considered. Commander Juno's crystal form pulsed with chaotic light patterns as his mathematical mind tried to calculate the implications of what the humans were suggesting. If we allow species to choose their own integration paths, the variables become infinite. We cannot predict outcomes. We cannot ensure stability. Engineer Yuna tilted her head with the practical curiosity that had made her such a good problem solver. "Why do you need to control the outcomes? Why cannot each species decide for themselves what kind of future they want?" The simple question sent another shockwave through the chamber. Queen Raya's collective consciousness, which had operated for millennia on the principle that coordination prevented chaos, found itself facing the terrifying idea that chaos might not be something to be prevented. Without guidance, young species make terrible mistakes, Queen Raya clicked, her mandibles moving in defensive patterns. They fight wars. They destroy their environments. They create weapons that could annihilate them. Order prevents suffering. Dr. Hana stepped forward, her scientific mind engaged by the philosophical challenge. But what if making mistakes is how species learn to be strong? What if protecting them from every danger also protects them from growing? The words hit the chamber like lightning striking a tree. The Aquari representative floated motionless in her tank, tentacles frozen as she processed an idea that challenged everything her species believed about wisdom and protection. "Your questions hurt to think about," the alien Dr. Hana said, her translated voice carrying genuine distress. "For millions of years we have known that experience brings wisdom, that age brings understanding, that those who have traveled a path can guide others along it safely. But what if there are other paths?" Captain Day asked gently. "What if some of them are better than the one you have been following?" The silence that followed was different from the earlier silences in the chamber. This was not the silence of confusion or shock. This was the silence of minds that had been locked in ancient patterns, suddenly seeing new possibilities stretching out before them like unexplored galaxies. General Kor, the Ursari military commander, had been growing more agitated as the conversation continued. His warrior instincts told him that these humans represented a threat to everything his people had spent millennia building and protecting. "You speak of change as if it is always good," he growled, his translated voice carrying the weight of authority that had kept peace for thousands of years. "But change can be destruction. Revolution can be chaos. Some systems work because they prevent disasters you cannot imagine." Diplomat Minho, who had been quiet through most of this unexpected turn in the first contact ceremony, finally found his voice. "You are right that change can be dangerous. But you know what is more dangerous? A system so rigid that it cannot adapt when circumstances change." The word struck the chamber like a hammer hitting crystal. Every alien species present had achieved their current level of advancement by perfecting systems and following them without deviation. The idea that their greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness was almost impossible to process. Ambassador Kira looked around the chamber at her fellow council members. Seeing uncertainty in forms of expression, she had learned to read over centuries of diplomatic service. "If we accept what you are suggesting, everything changes. Every protocol, every procedure, every assumption we have built our civilization on would need to be examined." "Yes," Captain Day said simply. The single word carried more power than all the advanced weapons in the galaxy. It was an acknowledgement, a challenge, and a promise all wrapped into one syllable. "Commander." Juno's crystal form began pulsing with new patterns as his mathematical mind started calculating possibilities it had never been allowed to consider before. The computational requirements for managing a galaxy where each species chooses its own development path would be extraordinary. But possible? Asked Engineer Yuna. Possible, Commander Juno admitted, and his translated voice carried what sounded like the first, genuine excitement he had felt in centuries. Queen Raya's collective consciousness was experiencing something unprecedented. Individual thoughts arising from the group mind, questions that had never been allowed to form before this moment. If species choose their own paths, some will fail. Some will suffer. Some will make choices that hurt them. And some will succeed beyond anything you can imagine, Dr. Hana replied. Some will find solutions to problems you never knew existed. Some will discover possibilities that your perfect system never allowed them to explore. The alien Dr. Hana's tentacles began moving in slow, thoughtful spirals through her water tank. You are asking us to trade certainty for possibility, safety for freedom, the known for the unknown. We are asking you to trust other species the way you would want to be trusted, Captain Day said. We are asking you to treat them as equals instead of children. The chamber fell silent once more, but this time the silence was pregnant with potential rather than heavy with confusion. 12 species that had mastered the galaxy through careful order and ancient wisdom found themselves contemplating a universe where younger civilizations might have something to teach them. Ambassador. Kira looked directly at Captain Day, her color-shifting skin settling into a pattern that indicated deep thought and growing understanding. You have asked us questions that no species has ever asked before. You have made us think thoughts that we have never thought. She paused, looking around at her fellow council members before continuing. Perhaps it is time we learn to ask why as well. The words spread through the chamber like ripples across water, reaching every species, translated into every language, carrying a simple idea that would change the galaxy forever. For the first time in a million years, the Galactic Council was ready to question their own assumptions. The silence had ended, replaced by the sound of 12 ancient civilizations learning to ask the most human of all questions. Why?